Hello, so I'm Selena Lloyd.
I'm Celine Braithwaite.
And I'm Bridget Burgos, and this is our Leadership and Management Delegation and Conflict Management.
So our conflict involves a patient recently diagnosed with colon cancer who's experiencing a lot of anxiety. He was medicated in the morning for constipation and has established a routine of calling the nursing station for bedpan assistance every 15 to 30 minutes. He wants to get on and off the bedpan. Several hours have passed and he has not had a bowel movement. Multiple times throughout the day, the patient has called the nursing station for assistance, but the unit clerk hasn't been able to find the nurse or the patient care technician assigned to that patient. She states out loud when there's other nursing staff around that the patient needs bathroom assistance, but doesn't single anyone out to please help the patient. Towards the end of the shift, the patient and his family member become upset and they yell at the nurse. The nurse feels defeated and she blames the unit clerk for not ensuring that the patient's needs were being addressed. So conflict resolution, there are 6 common steps or strategies. There's compromising, competing, cooperating or accommodating, smoothing, avoiding, and collaborating. In compromising, each party has to give up something they want. In order for this to be an effective strategy, a win-win strategy, each party should give up something of equal value. Otherwise, it becomes a win-lose strategy because one person is giving up more than the other. In our scenario, this is likely going to be an ineffective strategy because the nurse would feel like she's giving up more because she's the one that got yelled at by the patient and the family member. In the strategy of competing, one party pursues what they want at the expense of the other party. If in our scenario, if the nurse wants justice, she can blame the nurse. She can blame the unit clerk for not delegating correctly to a specific person to help her patient, and she can escalate this problem to the unit manager. In cooperating and accommodating, this is the opposite of competing. It's the least common conflict management used by healthcare professionals, in which one party sacrifices their beliefs or their wants and allows the other party to win. This will simply just, in our scenario, help the two parties move on, but there's no real resolution of the conflict. Similarly, in smoothing, one party attempts to pacify the other party. The unit clerk, for example, can apologize to the nurse for this particular instance, but there's no resolution because this type of scenario will just continue to happen. The actual problem, which is a delegation and communication problem, is not being resolved. And in the strategy of avoiding, both parties are aware of the problem, but they just ignore it. Sometimes they're trivial problems and they just let them build, but this can be, the problem can be then exaggerated later. And again, there's no actual resolution to the conflict. And what we want is patient care excellence. And lastly, collaborating. In collaborating, the nurse and the unit clerk can come together and put their individual wants aside, and they can work on a mutual goal. This is usually effective as a win-win strategy if one person doesn't have more power over the other. Destructive strategies would be ridicule, that's a form of intimidation, ambiguous or inappropriate questioning, which is sometimes used as like a diversionary tactic by somebody in a negotiation scenario. Flattery is another form of a diversionary tactic, and talking rapidly or aggressively in order to get your point across and not let the other person communicate their concerns or their needs. Before the negotiation, the negotiator needs to know all the details of the incident. They should listen to both sides of the story and get any other available witnesses or accounts of the incident. It may be beneficial for the negotiator to look through the records of the employees involved in order to understand who they're working with, like to study the individual. And lastly, they need to recognize the goal of the negotiation, which is patient care satisfaction and conflict resolution. They should determine what their bottom line is and what areas they're willing to trade off. During the negotiation, the negotiator should definitely stay calm. They should speak clearly, be assertive, but flexible. If emotions run high, they should definitely take breaks if needed. So the negotiator should remain neutral, not take any sides, stay objective. They should be a good role model for communication for each party to follow. They can offer resources like education modules to assist with the delegation and communication in the future. And responsibility charting, they may have to clearly define the function and responsibilities of the role of the unit clerk and the nurse in order to have this not occur again. Afterwards, they should restate the agreements made verbally and in writing, and the negotiator should thank every participant for their contribution to the conflict resolution.
Delegation. Delegation is simply defined as passing a job on to another person. There are 5 rights of delegation. The 5 rights are the right task, the right circumstance, the right person, the right directions, and the right level of supervision. With the right task, you want to make sure that the task that you are giving is an appropriate task for the right person you are giving to. And as for the right circumstance, you want to make sure it is the appropriate setting and that that person has the appropriate supplies available to perform that task. For the right direction, you want to make sure your instructions are clear and you are giving good directions to do the certain task that you need to be done. As for the level of supervision, once everything is done, you would go back and evaluate the task that was performed, and if anything needed to be fixed or any extra feedback you could give to that particular person who did that task. In this situation, if the nurse and the tech were both off the unit or not available to help put the patient onto a bedpan, you could delegate that task to the charge nurse. So the charge nurse is an appropriate person to perform this task, and as long as the bedpan is available, she should have the right circumstances. As for directions, pretty simple. Can you put the patient onto a bedpan? And for the supervision, you can go in there, evaluate to make sure that everything went smoothly. If the bedpan might be backwards, you could give feedback to the charge nurse, letting her know. So that way, for future references, she will be prepared. There are also 3 delegation errors. The first one is under delegating, so not passing off tasks to people like you're supposed to or that you could. This is usually due to the lack of trust to your subordinates. The next one is over delegating. This is actually the opposite. So instead of not giving enough tasks, you're giving them too many tasks to do. So they can feel overwhelmed and almost feel like this is a burden to be helping out. And then the last one is improper delegation. So giving a task to the to a person that doesn't know how to do it, they are not the right person, it's not the right setting, or you're letting them do this task for the wrong reasons. And that is pretty much it for delegation.
So Pfeiffer just defines a toxic workplace as a place where people come to work so that they can just get money and leave. They're not there to engage. They're not there to be empowered. They're not there to make a difference. They are just there, for financial increase. They're not connected to the company. And so then in healthy workplace, you will see a culture where there is ownership in the company. People come because they enjoy being there. They feel like there is a purpose for them. There's a high performance there in the company, and the people will continue to stay. And then there's a less turnover. The turnover rate is low. So as far as our current workplace is concerned, it is a healthy workplace. However, the scenario does have a little bit of conflict there, so that could break down um, the environment as far as being healthy. The management definitely would have to work on the scenario to increase communication and help resolve this situation as quickly as possible so that it doesn't bring down the whole morale of the team and everyone feels that they have a purpose and that they are needed at the organization and everyone has a part. Like I said, reward systems, doing a holistic environment. So it's mind, body, and spirit. Remember, all those things are important. And then empowering the staff. So in that scenario, what can we do differently to make sure that the next time when a patient calls that they're able to get the care that they need when their assigned caregivers aren't available, i.e. delegating it out to the charge nurse, or hey, specifically, Sally, can you go see about room 46 because their caregivers are off the floor? So that the patient isn't left unattended, and then the family's upset, the nurse is upset, the unit clerk's upset. Everyone's, now in a hostile environment. And then leadership core values. Um, in healthy workplaces, we notice that leaderships, they're trustworthy, they're honest, they're authentic, they're basically transparent. They are who they say they are, and people can feel that, and then they're able to follow those people because they feel like they're an honest person and the things that they give them are profitable for them and for the organization.